temptation it seemed. How mad was that? She would give it a shot. If it didn't work, she would pack up and head somewhere else for the remainder of her planned 3 months away. With her combined sick leave not taken for years and holidays way overdue, she could stay longer. She could go anywhere in the world she chose. Probably should have sooner. Like the day after her parents' joint funerals. But back then it would have felt like she was running away. At least she had preserved long enough to see if she could overcome her grief and stick it out. But 12 months on, her emotions were still raw, her life upside down as a result, so that she worked late, ate poorly, took every opportunity to babysit her sister Heather's children so she didn't have to endure the deep, aching loneliness of returning to the empty family home. For the first time in her life, she became highly aware of her single status, an utter lack of social life. She always joked that Heather and the kids made up for it, but now it just plain hurt. She needed to make a change. She knew she was a valued member of the Oxford accountancy firm and had left her options open. But crumbs! At this point in her life, tens of thousands of feet above the earth, flying east from England, somewhere above Russia or Asia, heading for the smallest continent on the planet that floated between the Indian and Pacific Oceans, she wasn't even sure she wanted to return to work or even England. What was back there? True, her 3 sisters, but they all lived their own lives. Now she should too. She knew options existed, but she needed to know what they were before she could put them into place. Right? Gripped by yet another yawn, Hannah's mouth gaped as she blinked hard to stay awake. Jet-lagged and knackered, she was beyond exhausted. It didn't help that her throat felt like sandpaper every time she swallowed. She had blown and sneezed her way through a box of tissues and sucked on a whole packet of orange lozenges during the 4-hour drive up from Melbourne Airport. This was nothing like England. It took so long to get anywhere in Australia, which only emphasised its vast distances. Now, gripping the wheel of her house-swapper Ginny's luxurious and comfortable 2-door BMW coupe until her knuckles were white, Hannah peered into the darkness, her headlights the only illumination between sparse street lamps as she crawled through the small country town of Tingara, searching for her destination. Her heart pounded. Back home, driving still bothered her, so she had taken to carpooling with other locals. Trying to overcome this ridiculous phobia about getting behind the wheel of a car, Hannah had crawled along the highway, barely travelling at the speed limit, hugging the white line to the side of her lane, terrified, enduring the 4 draining hours to her destination. "At the end of the main street," Ginny said. "You can't miss it." Hannah muttered wryly. Great that they drove on the left-hand side of the road over here, same as back home in England. The outspread branches of bare deciduous trees loomed at her as she passed. Fingers crossed, this wild idea didn't bomb. She would be bored out of her brain if the town was dull, but then it couldn't be any less rural than her home village of Snows Hill. And Ginny had assured her as a tourist town, Tingara hummed, especially on weekends, so she stayed hopeful. Finally, her bleary gaze latched onto the street sign she sought. Gumtree Lane. Brilliant. Hannah heaved a grateful sigh and turned left. "Only church in the street, right-hand side," she muttered, repeating Ginny's instructions. Her head turned, neck craned, frowning as she searched, barely able to see in the murky night. Ah, home. She used the word lightly. For 3 months anyway, while her fellow participant reaped the benefits of an English summer living in the Charles family's chocolate box cottage in England's postcard beautiful Cotswolds. Hannah had been plunged into the miserable depths of an approaching winter in a small Australian country town, halfway across and down the bottom of the world. In her fatigue, Hannah forgot to indicate as she turned into the driveway beside the church. It hardly mattered. Not like there was any other traffic about at this time of night, and probably not much more during daytime as well, she predicted. In the headlights, the exterior glared, so she guessed